We were discussing about Jiva and Jiva Sakshi. So, Jiva Sakshi is pure consciousness which transcends the mind, and Jiva is pure consciousness associated with the mind. Now, how do you make such a distinction that the pure consciousness associated with mind is Jiva, which transcends the mind is Sakshi? It depends upon the Visheshana and Upadhi. That is, we were explaining Jivahood or Jivatva is predicated of with reference to pure consciousness and mind. So, what is predicated of with reference to pure consciousness, namely Jivatva, has relation to even the mind, which is an adjectival feature. And what is predicated of with reference to the pure consciousness, that is Sakshitva, or the state of being a witness that does not have any relation to mind. So, Sakshitva, in this case, mind is a Upadhi. Now, we have to understand what is meant by Upadhi. We were explaining Visheshana. Upadhi we have to explain now. The usual example that is given is the all-pervasive ether. We have the all-pervasive ether, okay, Mahakasha. But what is Shrotrendriya, or the sense of hearing? The sense of hearing, Shrotra, is nothing but the ether conditioned by the cavity of the ear. Conditioned by the cavity of the ear. That is this portion. This is the conditioning factor of ether. Now, with reference to ether, what is being predicated of is, how do the Nayayikas or any school define Shrotrendriya, or the sense of hearing? The sense of hearing is nothing but the ether conditioned by the cavity of the ear. This is what is known as Shrotra. But all pervasive, what distinguishes this all pervasive ether from the Shrotrendriya or the sense of hearing? It is the cavity of the ear. So, what role does it play? Now, what is predicated of with reference to ether is Shrotratva. That is, the state of being, the sense of hearing, is predicated of with reference to ether. Now, which ether is designated Shrotrendriya? It is not the all-pervasive ether, but the ether conditioned by the cavity of the ear. That alone is referred to as Shrotrendriya. So, what is predicated of with reference to ether, namely the Shrotratva, does not have any relation to the Karna Shashkuli. It is called in Sanskrit as Karna Shashkuli, or the cavity of the ear. So, this cavity of the ear does not form part of Shrotrendriya, because if this is Shrotrendriya, whoever has got this, one should not be deaf at all. Whoever has this must be able to hear. But whoever has got this is not, we see persons who are not able to hear. So, this is only a Parichayaka, or indicating factor. Or it's in other words, in Sanskrit it is called Upadhi. It just serves as an indicating factor to distinguish the all-pervasive ether from the ether present inside the cavity, inside this cavity. So, with reference to ether, what is being predicated of is Shrotratva, or the state of being, the sense of hearing. But the cavity which forms part of the, which serves as an indicating factor of this etheric space, does not have any relation to what is being predicated of. It merely serves as an upadhi. We give the name upadhi, or it is a parichayaka or an indicating factor of the shrotrindriya. Now, in the same way, if we extend this kind of explanation in the case of Jiva Sakshi also, Jiva, pure consciousness plus mind, that constitutes Jiva. But in the case of Jiva Sakshi, we say that the consciousness which transcends the mind, that is called Sakshi, which means what is being predicated of with reference to the pure consciousness, namely the state of being a witness, to that state, mind does not have any relation. Because so long there is the relation of the mind with pure consciousness, then we have the notion of individual soul. When there is no relation with the mind, then it is merely a witness. So, in the same way, we speak of Ishvara and Ishvara Sakshi, and this is the underlying principle as to how you view one and the same pure consciousness as both Jiva and also Sakshi. When it has relation to mind, then it is called Jiva. When there is no relation, when it transcends the relation to mind, then it is called Jiva Sakshi. And only Dharmaraja makes such a distinction as Jiva Sakshi and Ishvara Sakshi. Strictly speaking, there is only one Sakshi, that is Ishvara, who is the Antaryami or the indwelling spirit. He is referred to as Sakshi in the Sampradaya Advaita. But he makes such a distinction on the basis of Visheshana and Upadhi. So, in the same way, instead of, in the place of mind, we have Maya. Pure consciousness, which is associated with Maya, is known as Ishvara. And you have to explain in the same way, what is being predicated of with reference to pure consciousness is Ishvaratva. You see, in Advaita, Jivatva or Jivahood, Ishvaratva or the state of being Ishvara, and Sakshitva, Sakshitva or the state of being a witness, all these are fancied by Avidya. Because Sakshitva is not a Sakshi is pure eternal consciousness, whereas Sakshitva or the state of being a Sakshi or a witness can be thought of only in relation to a Sakshya Vastu or a witnessed object. So it is a relative term. So long there is a witnessed object, there is the state of being a witness is in the pure self. So Ishvaratva, Jivatva and Sakshitva, all these are fancied by Avidya, they are all Kalpita. Okay, whereas the consciousness which is underlying Jiva, Ishvara and Sakshi, all these are eternal. So, Ishvaratva, when I speak of Ishvaratva, what is predicated of with reference to the pure consciousness? When it is in relation to Maya, then this Ishvaratva is predicated of with reference to this. So, it has relation to this Maya also. Because without the relation of Maya, you can never have the notion of Ishvara at all. So, here Maya serves as Visheshana. So, that is how he makes a distinction. Anayoho. Visheshanatva Maya and Antakarana, by serving as Visheshana, they go to make up the concept of Jiva and Ishvara respectively. While the pure consciousness does not have any relation to Maya or the mind, Antakarana, then it goes to make up the concept of Jiva Sakshi and Ishvara Sakshi. So when the pure consciousness transcends Maya, then it is called Ishvara Sakshi. And when you call this as Sakshi, as we explained in the case of Jiva Sakshi, what is predicated of with reference to pure consciousness is Sakshitva. In the case of Sakshitva, that is the Maya, there is no relation to Maya. Maya merely serves as an indicating factor, or it is Upadhi. So in the case of Jiva, mind serves as an adjectival feature, Visheshana. When we have to speak of Jiva, it serves as Upadhi when we have to speak of Jiva Sakshi. In the case of Ishvara, Maya is Visheshana and Upadhi. So when it is Visheshana, it is Ishvara. When it is Upadhi, it is Ishvara Sakshi. So this is how he makes a distinction between Ishvara and Ishvara Sakshi. Okay, now we pass on to the next topic, which RB was explaining today morning, and he also made a reference that I will be doing that. So I don't want to go against what he has said. Let me try to explain this Anirvachaniya Khyati. Now, he was explaining all kinds of theories of error, but deliberately omitted Anirvachaniya Khyati. The next topic in the text is Anirvachaniya Khyati. Now, as a prefatory note, Dharmaraja keeps before himself the Nyaya school, because there is always a cold war between Nayayikas and the Advaitins. In fact, the Advaitins are the target of attack from all schools. Vishishtadvaitins, Dvaitins, all of them attack only Advaita. But the problem is, at least in the texts which were written after 13th century, they all abound in the terse Nyaya language. So the Advaitins borrow the language of Nyaya, and unfortunately, they criticize the Nyaya school also. So that is the fate of the Nayayikas. Yes, not necessarily. Many of the Nyaya earlier theories are also criticized. But especially this Dharmaraja, he has the whole of the text abounds in Nyaya terminology. In other words, the Advaitic writers thought that it is very easy for them to explain their concepts by using the precise language of Nyaya. So leave alone the Prameya Bhaga of Nyaya, it is the language of Nyaya which they have adopted to explain, and notably Madhusudana Saraswati has borrowed, he was a great logician himself, and throughout the text, it abounds in Nyaya terminology. If one is not a trained Nayayika, one can safely omit touching the book even. One cannot even touch the book. So, what happens is, there is the false cognition of shell silver. And it is a fruitless activity, because shell silver, when one perceives shell as silver, no doubt it is a fruitless visamvadi pravritti, means you are not going to have silver anyway there. So it is a futile effort. When you go near, you find on further analysis that it is not silver. So it is a futile effort. So because it is a futile effort, one comes to the conclusion that shell silver is mithya or false, or it is rather illusory. Now the Nayayikas are apparently real. This position of Advaitins, the Nayayikas have known this position of the Advaitin. So now they attack the Advaitin by saying, you say that because it is a futile effort, in the case of shell silver, it is only the Pratibhasika, apparently real object that is seen. This is the thesis of the Advaitin. But the Advait Nayayikas go further. I just want to have a kind of feedback from you, how you are going to explain this kind of erroneous cognition. You say that At the time when it is, let us consider for example, at 3 o'clock, my watch shows 2:55, 3 o'clock is easier for me. At 3 o'clock, there is the erroneous cognition of shell silver. Because of dim light or bile affected sense organ, whatever be the reason, there is erroneous cognition of shell silver. At 3:20, I have come to realize that it is not, this is not silver, nedam rajatam, this is shell. Yam shuktireva. This is what is known as sublating cognition or badaka jnana. Now what the Advaitins say is, without the object being presented in cognition, one cannot satisfactorily explain the perceptual cognition of the object. If the object is not in front of me, I cannot speak of perceptuality. So, any object to be perceptual in nature warrants the presence of the object in front of you. So, aparokshatva anyata anupapatya. You cannot speak of immediacy of an object unless and otherwise the object is presented in your cognition. So, that much is certain. And you have perceived shell as silver at 3 o'clock. So, if the object silver were not present there, then there is no possibility of the cognition of shell silver, isn't it? But if it is really present there, subsequently it could not have been negated. But at 3:20 what happens? Somebody instructs you or you yourself realize that it is not silver. There is somehow, there is the badaka jnana or the sublating cognition, this is not silver, this is only shell. This has also arisen. Now, what is the status of the intervening period? What happens between 3 and 3:20? 3 o'clock, you have had the cognition shell silver and you have been having the same knowledge till 3:20, isn't it? So, till such time, there has existed silver in the shell. Now, how do you account for, otherwise, how do you account for such a kind of cognition of shell as silver? If the object were not there, you would not have had the cognition shell silver. So, from 3 to 3:20 at least. Of course, from 3:20 onwards, it is not going to be silver. But from 3 to 3:20, you have had the cognition of silver there, and there should have been the presence of silver. Otherwise, you cannot account for your cognition as shell silver. So, the Advaitins are left with no other option except to say that at the time when shell was perceived as silver, in order to account for the perceptuality, one has to admit, we will describe that anirvachaniya utpatti later on. For the present, you understand that there has been an indeterminable creation, anirvachaniya utpatti of silver. At the time when it was perceived or mistaken as silver, there has been an indeterminable creation of silver in the shell. How there is indeterminable creation, we will explain a little later. Now, this position, the Nayayikas do not agree. You do say that there is futile effort and it is not a valid cognition, it is erroneous cognition. That much I also agree. But the fact that pratibhasika rajatotpanna tatkala vishayakatve, you say that at the time when it is perceived as silver, there has been an indeterminable creation of silver in a shell. This fact I don't want to admit. The Nayayikas, they don't want to admit. So what is the position? How else will you admit? How else will you account for it? So the Nayayikas say, Professor R.B. was mentioning about the theory of error advocated by the Nyaya school, Anyatha Khyati. Now, what does this theory say? Anyata Khyati means an object which is present elsewhere is presented in your cognition. Oh, if that is the case, object which is present elsewhere, how can it be presented in my cognition? Should I not have sense contact? How can I account for the perceptual knowledge? So that question arises. So, there is a piece of shell in front of you which is perceived as silver. Now, at least there are three conditions. One is knowledge of similarity. Shell is always mistaken for a piece of silver because the shell possesses a kind of similarity with that of silver. Sadrishya. Now, what happens? The Nayayikas say, when the piece of shell is mistaken for silver, there is sense contact with the object in front, and because the element of shell, because the similarity which the element of shell possesses with that of silver, that kindles your recollection of silver, because there is resemblance of shell and silver, you are able to recollect the real silver which you have seen in a shop. Apanastha rajata. That is anyata khyati, no? Something which is present elsewhere. Silver that is present in a shop, the recollection which you have, the experience of silver which you have had earlier, that is being recollected. Now, recollection cannot come of its own. There must be some udbodhaka, there must be some factor which should kindle that memory, which should kindle that impressions. Because there are so many impressions in us, isn't it? And we do not have the recollection of all objects at a time. There must be some factor to kindle that impression. So, what is that factor which kindles? The sadrishya, or the similarity which the shell possesses with that of silver, that kindles the impressions in you. So, you are reminded or you recollect the silver that you have perceived in a shop. Now, so far is only the statement of fact. Now, the real story begins for the Nayayika only now. He was also making a mention of two kinds of perception. One is ordinary perception, laukika pratyaksha, and the other is extraordinary perception, alaukika pratyaksha. This is laukika. Laukika pratyaksha means ordinary sense contact, where you are explaining how the knowledge of pot arises through the sense contact samyoga, the color of the pot, how it is perceived, samyukta samavaya, the colorness that is present in pot, samyukta samaveta samavaya, and it goes on like that. There are 6 types of contact. This is all admitted by everyone. But beyond this laukika type of sannikarsha, the Nayayikas also speak of 3 kinds of sannikarsha or contacts, which are jnana lakshana pratyasatti, samanya lakshana pratyasatti, and yogaja pratyasatti. Now, for the present, we can explain jnana lakshana pratyasatti because that is the point of relevance here. Now, what is jnana lakshana pratyasatti? Normally, contacts or sannikarshas, the Nayayikas have admitted samyoga, tadatmya, samyoga, samavaya. These are the types of relations, and which he also makes use of in the explanation of perceptual knowledge. Now, beyond this, he says jnana lakshana pratyasatti. Jnana lakshana means, pratyasatti means contact, sannikarsha, and the contact in the form of knowledge. Knowledge serves as a contact. What type of knowledge? Knowledge is of 2 types, experience and recollection. Now, in the case of shell silver, when you perceive shell, you have recollected the silver perceived earlier. So, there is recollection of silver. No, you should not put the question for what I am going to say now. Although I don't also agree, I don't also like, but I am forced to say that because it is the Nyaya position. He says, the smriti or recollection, it serves as a contact. Smriti is a type of knowledge. The recollection of silver, it is unheard of, but from now onwards you have to hear. Smriti, can Smriti serve as a contact? We have not heard of Smriti serving as a contact, sir. How could you speak of Smriti as a contact? But that is what the Nayayikas say. So the recollection, in all cases of erroneous cognition, this is the story he says. Whatever is mistaken for something, that something is being recollected. And that recollection itself serves as a contact. Because of that, you are perceiving shell as silver. That recollection serves as a contact for you to perceive shell as silver. That is why Anyatra vidyamanasya rajatasya, the rajata or the silver which is present elsewhere, that is being presented in your cognition. If you do not say any kind of satisfactory answer, you cannot account for the perceptual knowledge of silver in a shell. This is how the Nayayikas explain in all cases of erroneous cognition. So, first of all, the Advaitins anticipate an objection from the Nayayikas that the Nayayikas cannot accept Anirvachaniya Rajatotpati, indeterminable creation, they cannot admit. So, what will be the position of the Nayayika? Okay, you say, how will you account for it? This is the Advaitins question. So, the immediate answer of the Nayayika, oh, very well. I will explain it with Jnana Lakshana Pratyasati. It's very easy for me. But the Advaitins are very much ready with a question to attack the Nayayikas, that if you are going to explain all cases of erroneous cognitions on the basis of Jnana Lakshana Pratyasati, then I will put you a very pertinent question. What happens in the case of inferential cognition of fire in a mountain? You perceive smoke in the mountain, isn't it? And when you perceive smoke, immediately what happens? What is the step involved there? You perceive smoke in the mountain. The knowledge of smoke in the mountain is called Paksha Dharmata Jnana. And this kindles your recollection of the knowledge of recollection, that is the invariable relation of smoke to fire, that is Vyapti Jnana. You recollect the invariable relation of smoke to fire. Fire is not cognized by you directly. You only have the recollection of fire. Smoke is perceived. There are two, A and B are always related to each other. And when you perceive B, you are able to recollect A also. Eka sambandhi jnanena apara sambandhi smarakam. So B you are seeing on the mountain, smoke you are seeing in the mountain. And the knowledge of B, you are able to recollect that A and B are invariably related to each other. Now, is there not a recollection of fire element? Yes. On seeing smoke, you are able to recollect fire. Now, the Nayayikas, the Advaitins attack the Nayayikas saying, if recollection could serve as a contact in all cases of erroneous cognition, I will compel you to admit the same position in the case of inference also. Don't you recollect fire on seeing smoke? Yes, you do recollect. So, that recollection, let that itself serve as a contact to give rise to the cognition of fire in the mountain. Why should the Nayayikas cannot nod his head, because then he has to completely do away with inferential cognition. All kinds of inferential cognitions can be explained in the same way, because whenever you see the ground of inference, you will immediately recollect what is sought to be established, the invariable relation you will recollect. In the same way, the recollection of the sadhya or the whatever is sought to be established, that itself could serve as a contact to give rise to the knowledge of fire in the mountain. So what is so sacred about erroneous cognitions alone? If you admit that smriti could serve as a contact, recollection could serve as a contact, why not you extend this line of explanation in the case of inferential cognitions also? Do you get the point? So this is what exactly happens in the case of inferential cognition, because you perceive smoke. Fire is not in direct contact, but you are able to recollect fire. If you are able to recollect fire, let that recollection serve as a contact and give rise to the cognition of fire in the mountain. Why should there be inferential cognition? That means Anumanadhyuchedapattihi, he says. Anumanadhyuchedapatti, the Nayayikas cannot nod their head, because that means he has to totally give up Anumana or inferential cognition as a pramana, which however is not the case, because the Nayayikas are solely dependent upon Anumana. Because the Charvakas, who believe only in one pramana, that is Pratyaksha, they question the Nayayikas. Anumana is not a pramana, inference is not a pramana, how can you say so? No. For that also the Nayayikas say, no, you should not say so, sir. Anumanam pramanam, anumiti janakatavachedakatvat. He gives an argument which is also an inferential statement. In order to prove that inference is a pramana, and to convince the Charvakas also, the Nayayikas give a statement, Anumanam pramanam. Anumana should be admitted as a proof. Why? He gives a ground or reason for that. So, the Nayayikas at no point of time can give away inference as a pramana. So, the resultant, what is the result of this argument is, the Advaitins at any rate are not prepared to admit Jnana Lakshana Pratyasati, which is advocated by the Nayayikas. So what now remains is, then how do you account for the presence of silver in the on shell? Now, because it is an Advaita text, we have to, he will be winning the race. So he starts explaining Anirvachaniya Rajatotpatti. Now it is the turn of the Nayayikas to question the Advaitins. Okay, let us not admit Jnana Lakshana Pratyasati. Now I want to get clarified with your position. You say that silver is produced at 3 o'clock, it has been indeterminably created in this shell. That is how I have been able to perceive silver from 3 to 3:20. There has been the indeterminable creation at exactly 3 p.m. Now the Nayayikas, they are very curious to know, any object in order to be produced requires two factors as causal element. One is upadhana karana and the other is nimitta karana, or the efficient cause. One is the material cause and the other is the efficient cause. Now, if you speak of utpatti or origination of silver in a shell, now what serves as the material cause and what is the efficient cause? So he puts the question, Rajata Utpadakanam. For the Nayayikas, he does not speak of Upadana Karana, but he puts the question Upadana Karana, because normally in all Indian philosophical schools admit two kinds of causes, material cause and efficient cause, Upadana and Nimitta Karana. But the Nayayikas try to find an equivalent of Upadana Karana in Samavai Karana, or the inherent cause, and there is the efficient cause or the Nimitta Karana, and over and above these two causes, the Nayayikas add one more cause, that is Asamavai Karana or non-inherent cause. So for the Nayayikas, there are three causes involved in producing any effect. Okay, but then the Nayayikas don't want to confuse with Samavaya, Asamavaya, Nimitta Karana. He puts a general question, what is the Upadana Karana and what is the Nimitta Karana? But at the back of his mind, he has his own position, because he has been given to understand that the Upadana Karana is only Samavaya Karana of his school. So, a little explanation of the causes admitted in the Nyaya school would be helpful for us. A pot, in order to be produced, requires three kinds of causes for the Nyaya school. What are those causes? Samavayi. Samavayi is inherent cause. Samavayi are the inherent cause. Asamavayi, non-inherent cause. And nimitta. Now, with regard to a pot is a whole substance. It is a dravya, it is a whole which has originated from out of its parts. Now, whole is called avayavi. A whole in English is called avayavi, parts are avayava. So, the Nyaya school admits the relation of Samavaya between 5 pairs, of which this is one pair. Between parts and wholes, there is always the relation of inherence or Samavaya. There is intimate relation. In other words, over and above the parts, the Nyaya school admits the theory of causation known as Arambhavada or Asatkaryavada. For them, the effect does not pre-exist in its cause. The effect is a de novo creation. It is created anew. The effect is created anew in the parts. So, over and above the parts or the avayava, the effect called whole, that is the part, comes into existence through the relation of samavaya. So, the parts or the avayavas, they constitute the samavaya karana or the inherent cause of the pot. So, any substance will have its own parts as the inherent cause or the samavaya karana. Now, what is the non-inherent cause? It is the conjunction of the parts, that is the non-inherent cause, and there is, in the case of pot, there is a nimitta karana, that is the potter is the nimitta karana, and so he explains. Now, for the present, the point of relevance is you have to understand that any whole must necessarily come out of the parts which are the inherent cause of the whole. So, with this at the back of his mind, the Nayayikas put the question, Nanu rajata utpadakanam rajata avayavadinam abhave. In order that silver may be produced in shell, what is required is, you require the avayava or the parts of rajata, parts of silver. Otherwise, your whole will not be manifested in shell. So, if silver is to be presented in your cognition, it is considered as a whole or karya or effect. Now, what should serve as the cause for that effect? There must be the avayava or the parts. So, where are the parts which would serve as the inherent cause of that whole? So, he puts the question, Nanu rajata utpadakanam rajata avayavadinam abhave. I don't see any kind of parts which give rise to the whole in the shell silver. I am not able to find out. So, how are you going to account for the presence of silver? Rajata utpadakanam rajata avayavadinam abhave katam tavapi. Okay, you have criticized my position, but at least for you, how you are going to manage this situation? Katam tavapi rajatam utpadyate. How for you, how are you going to explain the creation of rajata? So, the Advaitins say, Sir, Mr. Nayayika, please don't bring in the kind of real silver in the case of shell silver. Nahi lokasiddha samagri pratibhasika rajatotpadika. The silver which I am speaking of in shell silver is only apparently real. It is a apparently real object or pratibhasika rajata. So, Nahi Lokasiddha Samagri means Samagri means Karana Kalapa or causal apparatus, which is required for the real silver. Real silver means at least the Advaitins have at the back of their mind the Vyavaharika Rajata or the empirically real silver. The silver which is made into ornaments or the vessels or whatever it may be, which is present in the shop. So, though that silver must necessarily possess avayavas, from out of the avayavas only it should come into existence. But you should not think of such a silver. Nahi lokasiddha samagri pratibhasika rajatotpadika. That does not serve as the cause of the pratibhasika rajata. Kintu vilakshanaiva. It is something different. The cause which I am going to speak of with respect to the shell silver is something different. Kintu vilakshanaiva. Now what is it? He says the shell silver now says shell is mistaken for silver. So, how does it appear as silver? Nahi lokasiddha samagri pratibhasika rajatotpadika. It is apparently real. Kintu vilakshanaiva. Now he explains the process. Tatahi kachadi dosha dushita lochanasya. Either it is a bile affected sense or due to cataract, whatever be the defect in the sense organ. Kachadi dosha dushita lochanasya. Such a sense organ comes into contact with purovarti dravya samyogat. It comes into contact with the object in front, that is shell. Purovarti dravya samyogat, what happens? Because it is a defective sense organ, you are not able to perceive the object as it is. It is just manifested as this, as something, this. It is the samanyamsha or the general element alone is manifested in the cognition. Whereas the visheshamsha or the specific aspect of shellness or shuktitva, that is being suppressed or concealed. So, kachadi dosha dushita lochanasya purovarti dravya samyogat, when there is the contact, what happens? Idamakara means this. There arises a mental state because there is direct contact. Mind has gone to the place where it is present. So, idamakara, chakachikyakara, and it has brilliance. That object has got brilliance. Idamakara, chakachikyakara cha kachid antakarana vrittihi udeti. There arises a mental state in the form of this. Now, in order to understand, we are making this kind of distinction a level within the cognition. All of a sudden there arises, this is silver. One does not take, no, it is not sequential, this. Okay, after some time, silver, it does not, all of a sudden, spontaneously, you go to pick up the shell, whether somebody sees you, oh, it is silver, she goes to pick up. So, all this is simultaneous. But, as I told you earlier, the function of logic is to go backward and analyze what has happened and how it has happened. The whys and hows, it is explaining, it is trying to explain. So now, kachadi dosha dushita lochanasya purovarti dravya samyogat idamakara chakachikyakara cha kachid antakarana vrittihi udeti. There is a mental state in the form of this element. Now what happens? normal circumstances, it should have been manifested as this is silver only. I'm sorry, this is shell only. But instead, it is manifested as this is silver. Now, where lies the defect? Who is the culprit to manifest it as silver? This is the portion or the position where we have to explain how silver has arisen. Now, let us go back to our original position. The basic position of Advaita, which I have been repeating in all my classes, every object is superimposed upon the consciousness conditioned by it. This is the basic position. So, Shukti or shell is superimposed upon the consciousness conditioned by it. Because all objects have for their underlying reality, the ultimate reality, it is absolute reality or pure consciousness. So, there is the pure consciousness, but we do not say that it is pure consciousness. In order to distinguish it from the pure consciousness, we call it as Chaitanya, which is conditioned by shell. Shell conditioned consciousness, object conditioned consciousness. But for all, because it is being conditioned by an object, you give the name object conditioned consciousness. But I have written it as pure consciousness. Now this is only object conditioned consciousness. To be very precise, even more, Shuktyavachinna Chaitanya, the consciousness conditioned by the shell. This is in reality, this exists here. Now, you have failed to notice the Shuktyamsha here, which is the specific aspect. On the other hand, you have perceived it to be only with the Samanyamsha or the this element. You have perceived the shellness has been concealed and you have perceived it as this. Now, who is the culprit? Who has given rise to such a knowledge? Why you have perceived it as this? Any object should be perceived as this is something, this is shell. Now here, this element should be identified with the shell and you should have perceived it as this is shell. Instead, you are going to perceive it as this is silver. Isn't it? So, now what happens? According to our position, this consciousness conditioned by the object, it is concealed by Tula Vidya or modal ignorance. Isn't it? All objects, object conditioned consciousness are all concealed by modal ignorance. This we have been repeating quite a number of times. Now, this modal ignorance, what does it do? It conceals the specific aspect of shell. By its power of concealment. Because avidya possesses two powers, isn't it? One is avarana shakti or the power of concealment. So through the power of concealment, what does it do? It conceals the specific aspect of shell, namely shellness. So that is being suppressed. You are not able to see the shellness. In which case you would have had the cognition this is shell, if it had not been concealed. But unfortunately, because of your bile affected sense or dim light, whatever be the reason, this Tula Vidya, due to its power of concealment, conceals the specific aspect of shellness. Okay. Does it rest with that? Concealing the shellness alone? No. It commits another mistake. Due to its power of projection or Vikshepa Shakti, because avidya possesses two powers, isn't it? Due to its power of Vikshepa or power of projection, it projects it as silver. So, of the two phases of avidya, one phase of avidya conceals the specific aspect of shellness, and the power of projection, that is Vikshepa Shakti of Tula Vidya, projects it as silver. Now, precisely, it is the Tula Vidya that is the main cause or the Upadana Karana for projecting shell as silver. Is it clear? What is the cause of the projection of silver? The Tula Vidya or the concealing phase, the projecting phase of Tula Vidya, the Vikshepa phase of Tula Vidya projects this element as identical with silver, and by its power of concealment, it conceals the specific aspect of shellness. So, but due to its both powers, the Tula Vidya is the main culprit for projecting this element as silver. Okay. Now, does the Tula Vidya act of its own? Because it is also an insentient element. Avidya cannot operate of its own accord, isn't it? Avidya is an insentient object. It is a jada padartha. Avidya, how can it project this element as silver? It needs some principle, light principle, which would make it fit enough to act or project it as silver. So, what is that force behind avidya which makes it reveal this element as silver? It is the consciousness or the object conditioned consciousness, which serves as the substratum of Tula Vidya, that makes the Tula Vidya project as silver. Now, this is the juncture where we have to make a clear distinction between two kinds of upadana. There are two causes initially, upadana karana and nimitta karana. And even within upadana karana, the Advaitins make a twofold distinction of upadana karana as parinami upadana karana and vivarthopadana karana. Should we go up to 4 o'clock or 3:45 should I stop? 4 o'clock is for RB's class. 4 or 4:30? Okay. Not 3:30. He said 4 o'clock. 4 to 5:30, no? Okay. 3:45 we will stop. So, the Advaitins make a distinction of upadana karana into two types of upadana karana. Parinami upadana karana and vivarthopadana karana. So, the material cause which actually undergoes transformation is called parinami upadana karana. So, you call it as transformative material cause. And vivarthopadana is transfigurative material cause. Now, what happens in the case of shell silver? The consciousness conditioned by the shell, in that consciousness is being concealed by Tula Vidya, and the power of concealment conceals the specific aspect of shellness and projects it as silver. This is what we have explained. So now this Tula Vidya, it actually undergoes transformation in the form of silver. The Vikshepa phase or the Vikshepa Shakti of the Tula Vidya, it actually modifies or transforms in the form of the silver element. So, it is the Tula Vidya that is the cause, Parinam Upadana, because that material which actually undergoes transformation, that is considered as Parinam Upadana Karana. So, the Tula Vidya is the Parinami Upadana Karana of shell silver. Because it actually transforms in the form of silver, the Tula Vidya. Now, what makes the Tula Vidya transform? It is the underlying consciousness, the light principle. So, the Tula Vidya, by being present in the consciousness undergoes transformation. Now, how do the Advaitins define Vivartopadanatva? What is meant by Vivarta? The Maya or Tula Vidya, which undergoes transformation by being the substratum of such a Maya, such a principle called Maya. The Chaitanya or the pure consciousness also is figuratively spoken of as the cause, because it causes the Tula Vidya appear as silver. Is it clear? This is precisely where the Sankhya school and the Advaitins make a line of distinction. For the Sankhya school, the Prakriti is Upadana Karana. The Prakriti evolves into matter. But how does it evolve? Of its own insentient Prakriti evolves of its own accord. I was mentioning about Sutradadina Arthavati in my first class. The Advaitins also seem to exactly formulate the same view as that of the Sankhya school. What is the difference between Advaita and Sankhya? Shankara says, Idivayam swatantram kanchit jagataha pragavastam abhyagachema. If only we admit jagataha pragavastam, the causal principle for the world, swatantram, independent of any sentient principle, if we admit so, then prasanjayeta pradhana karanavadaha, we would have fallen in line with the Sankhya school. Just as they admit insentient Prakriti as the cause of the world. But fortunately, we don't do so. Parameshwara adhinatu yam asmabihi pragavata. Maya, which speaks of as the cause of the world, is Parameshwara adhina. Mayam tu prakritim vidya, mayam tu Maheshwara. It is by being located in Ishvara, it is spoken of as the cause of the world. So Parameshwara adhinatu yam asmabihi pragavata nas swatantra. It does not evolve. It is not an independent entity. It does not evolve of its own accord. So that is the power in us. The pure consciousness, by being the substratum of Maya or Tula Vidya, whose transformation is the silver element. This is also figuratively spoken of as the cause. So that precisely constitutes Vivartopadanatva. So Vivartopadanatva definition that is given is Parinaman Maya Adhishtanatvam. Parinaman Maya Adhishtanatvam is Maya which undergoes Parinama. So to be the substratum of Maya, whose transformation is the effect. Exact similar consideration applies the case of Jagat. Jagat is the effect, just as the silver is the effect, and Maya located in pure consciousness. Now, in the case of the world also, what is the Upadana Karana? Parinam Upadana Karana is Maya, because it is the Maya which undergoes transformation in the form of the universe. And where is it located? Maya being located in the pure consciousness, it is the cause of the world. So this Maya is the Parinam Upadana Karana, and pure consciousness is Vivartopadana Karana. Is it clear? So in this case also, the Shuktyavachinna Chaitanya, or the consciousness conditioned by the shell, that by being the substratum of Tula Vidya, which undergoes actual transformation in the form of silver, this is also spoken of as the cause. So this is the Vivartopadana Karana, whereas the Stula Vidya is Parinam Upadana Karana. With regard to this, I have to explain some more concept of Bada and Nivritti, which I will explain tomorrow, and something more related to that also. With that, we will finish Vedanta Paribhasa. Then Swapna Prapancha is there.